What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined with my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. And today we're going to be talking about Matt Stafford being a Los Angeles Ram. Matt, all of the rumors over the weekend was that it was a done deal with the 49ers. He was going to be in red and gold very soon. Now he's in blue and yellow. How does this affect the Niners moving forward? Is it a huge change for the team?
Yeah, it immediately puts their quarterback situation as the worst in the division. And people, notwithstanding with what they reported or whatever, I'm sure that the 49ers definitely had interest. And I just think that the Rams came in with an offer that nobody was going to refuse for a 33-year-old quarterback with a litany of injuries. So, yes, Stafford does go to the Lions, from the Lions to the Rams. Goff goes back in return, and then it's 2 future firsts and a third, I believe, is the compensation. That's a lot for Matthew Stafford. So good for the Rams. They're definitely taking a bold approach to team building. They're kind of shortchanging their future by going all in the present. That hasn't always panned out, but I guess if you get a Super Bowl out of it, it would be worth it. To me, I'm okay with the 49ers not paying that price. And, the big narrative is going to be that the 49ers haven't done enough. It's still early in the process. I think that if Stafford had gone to any other team other than an NFC West team, they wouldn't have the same concerns that they do with Stafford being on the Rams. And they would have been more open to the idea that 2 future firsts is too much for Stafford. It's just that it hurts to see him come to a place where we have to play him twice a year on top of Russell Wilson, on top of Kyler Murray, looking at Jimmy Garoppolo, who can't stay healthy. That's really what this boils down to.
And I think also, the fact that a lot of people were envisioning him coming here. That, it's like it's almost twice, it stings twice as much because not only is he not coming here, he's going to your rival. Obviously, he's not Seattle, but still the Rams play the Niners, at least they have played the Niners pretty tough last few years. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes out. The Rams, I think, get better, a lot better. Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I think it's I could be mistaken, and I'm sure my wife will kill me if I get this wrong, but it's kind of like that movie Love Actually.
Go on.
where Alan Rickman's character or whatever buys the jewelry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the wife sees it and thinks it's for her, but he actually bought it for his secretary.
Yeah.
So it's she gets the CD and it's trash, and she's like, "What?" It's kind of like that. You build up your expectations to, I'm going to get Matthew Stafford. I'm going to get Matthew Stafford. And then it turns out that, nope, it's Jimmy G. Nope, you got a floral decoration. That's all you got. It's one of those things where, the fan base got their expectations, and this is partly due to reporting, which I talked about on the live stream. And, there were expectations built up that didn't pan out, and that's okay. That happens. But it becomes a bitter pill to swallow when you see a rival get what was supposed to be coming to you. And that's really where we're at. It's unfortunate. I would have liked to see him go to somebody else, but that didn't happen. So,
yeah. And, the 49ers now don't have Robert Saleh. He's now obviously the head coach of New York Jets, and they are going to deal with face Matt Stafford twice a year, paired with Sean McVay. It could be a pretty formidable duo there that they have to face now in the division. But he's no Deshaun Watson. That's all I'll say. He is still somebody that the 49ers can have success against, but he does improve the team, I would say, a good amount, because Jared Goff always seemed to end up biting them in the butt somehow. That was always the reason why they couldn't progress past to the next level, even in this year's playoffs. It was John Wolford and Jared Goff. And speaking of that, I said in the group chat, as soon as we heard Sean McVay say it's going to be between John Wolford, Jared Goff, open competition, that should have said all you needed to know about how they felt about Jared Goff moving forward, and should have made you really take the smoke, trade rumors, whatever you want to call it, surrounding Matt Stafford seriously. The Rams are not afraid to give up whatever it takes to get whoever they want. They've shown that previously, Jalen Ramsey, and a few other players, if I remember correctly. So I think those have been the two main splash moves, but still they're not as conservative as some other teams. So
yeah, I didn't realize it was as bad as it was with Jared Goff. In the playoffs, he came back. They started Wolford, and Goff was the emergency guy. He was 11 days removed from a thumb surgery when he broke his thumb. There was no indication that even before he broke the thumb, they were thinking about a switch. But it turns out reports are that surgery didn't hamper him as much, and it was just McVay being kind of fed up with Goff. And this just turns into, between Stafford and Goff, the Rams are paying more than $40 million for a quarterback. The dead cap on Goff is $22 million going back the other way. So on top of Stafford's salary, they must have really been unhappy. And, things happened really fast. They moved on really quickly. Poor Goff, his smoke show girlfriend's probably going to leave him now because Detroit is a sucky city. But hopefully from, the football perspective, he gets it back on track. No, it's unfortunate that didn't work out. The Rams spent their 2017 pick on that. They traded up to get that pick, remember, under Jeff Fisher. So we're looking at a Rams team that's not going to have a first round pick till 2024. They felt that strongly about Jared Goff to just, again, mortgage further into their future to win now. I mean, that must have been a terrible situation. I've heard rumors that Jared Goff felt like he was railroaded by the team and that he wasn't appreciated. So it's going to be a fresh start for him. And shout outs to Dan Sileo, who a lot of people made fun of for talking about this stuff, but was actually willing to adjust. I mean, he said that the 49ers were in on it. And then when he heard Rams, he was the first person to kind of jump back and say, you know what? No, I'm hearing that Matthew Stafford thinks that the Rams are a contender and there's something that he would go to. And he turned out to be right. So shout outs to him. I didn't expect this move just because of Goff. I thought Goff's contract was unmovable. That was proven wrong. I mean, and to think in a down year with COVID, talking about how much you're going to lose on the cap, depending on where they set it at, on top of $40 million in dead cap space for, you're paying for two quarterbacks essentially because he didn't like the one. That's out there. They must have really been unhappy with Goff to be able to do that. So it's really interesting to see.
It is. And not only that, but that's also why they had to give up so much to get Matt Stafford, because they paid a premium for them to kind of take on Jared Goff's contract and their future first round picks. They're not, right now and next year's their future picks because they didn't have any current first round picks because of Jalen Ramsey. So the Rams paid an even higher price because they didn't have anything in the bank right now. It's like they're paying the extra overdraft fees for their check bouncing, So it's interesting, but the Rams, like I said, kudos to them. They were willing to make the move, pull the trigger when other teams weren't. I don't think the price would have been as high had the 49ers actually really been interested in considering it, just because they have tangible picks right now as opposed to future within the next few years. And they have, players that aren't signed to as crazy contracts as Jared Goff is. And he put out a statement. We went over this in the live show as well on Sunday night, that, he's happy to be in a place that appreciates him and that wants him. So I think I'm reading into this a little bit and I'm thinking it was definitely pretty bad in LA and maybe he felt disrespected or slighted or whatever the case may be. I hope he balls out in Detroit.
It makes you wonder if that trash meme about Jared Goff saying he would pipe Sean McVay's wife is like a real thing, right? Like that thing has fallen apart. That's one of the fastest fall aparts of a quarterback and coach combo that I think of. Mm-hmm. It just immediately went sideways. Yeah. And it's one of the few ones where you got a quarterback with a huge contract that's able to get moved. We were talking about it just a couple weeks ago with Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, and the Philadelphia Eagles were like, well, see you, Doug. Yep. You're more movable than Carson is. So we got to get, we got to let you go. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's tough to think about in terms of, Goff was something that we penciled on the schedule was like, that's not too bad. No. And now it goes to Matthew Stafford, and you're like, oh, that's kind of worse. So from a 49ers perspective, it definitely hurts. It's just one of those things where it's like, I can't believe that happened so fast.
It's true. Yeah. And you were talking about it yourself, saying that, the season's not even over. The league year hasn't started. No way anything happens. It ended up happening. So kudos to the Rams. Like I've been saying, they got it done. Now it remains to be seen if it's going to work out for them. Maybe it doesn't work out somehow. Something happens, whatever. But the 49ers are definitely going to have to take this game, the two games against the Rams this year, a lot more seriously because it's a much tougher opponent with Stafford back there than Goff. Matt, after not giving up the, exorbitant price for Matt Stafford. Do you think they'll really give up the cost for Deshaun Watson?
Listen, if I had to guess, as much as I love Deshaun Watson and I want the 49ers to go and get him, I don't think they will. Miami is in the best position to give up enough to get Deshaun Watson without actually crippling their chances to, team build. I know I said on the live show, 4 firsts, whatever, get it out the door. I don't think that's realistic, especially given this regime's kind of conservativeness at the quarterback position. They seem to be really hesitant to tie their wagon to any one guy. And I think it'd be a safe bet to do it to Deshaun Watson, but you don't want to turn the 49ers into the Houston Texans, which becomes a problem when you think about all of the capital that you're going to give up to get Deshaun Watson. I think what the 49ers can try to do is wait it out just like everybody else is. I think that Deshaun Watson, if he thinks that he can hold tight, has all of the leverage in the world. Carson Palmer did this in 2011 with the Bengals when he said, I'm absolutely done. I would rather sit at home than play for this organization anymore. And, that lasted into October. And then, the Brown family traded him to the Raiders. And so there is precedent there. Deshaun Watson does have all the cards. He just has to hold firm. I think the Texans are kind of waiting to see if they can stall him out a little bit. But the further they go down the line, I think that asking price starts to come down because they're going to realize that they don't have any leverage and that Deshaun Watson is not going to play for them. And then teams are going to swoop in. And you're going to see a bidding war, which will drive the price back up a little bit. It's just going to depend on where it is. It's one of those things where I really feel like Miami is the best landing spot for him in terms of Miami can give up the most without killing themselves. And again, with the 49ers conservativeness at the quarterback position, I just don't see them going all in as much as I would want them to.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I don't think they're willing to part with as much as it would take to get Deshaun Watson. It really just comes down to should have taken him when you had the chance. Unfortunately, now he's way too expensive. I can't see them realistically paying that price. If they weren't willing to for Matt Stafford, I don't think they'll be. And they're two totally situations, don't get me wrong. But I just think that they value their draft picks a lot more than, say, the Rams do or even other teams. I think Deshaun Watson likely goes elsewhere, maybe Miami, like you said. Rumors that that's his top destination for the most part. I just think that the 49ers either stick with Jimmy or draft a guy in the first round, maybe a Trey Lance if he falls to 12. That's probably your best situation at this point to where you can get a guy who realistically could be there for a while, maybe have some success and not give up, half the farm to get him. And maybe they do bank on Jimmy coming back healthy and actually playing 16 games and actually being solid and making some strides in his game. Maybe that actually happens. Who knows? But as much as I would like to see Deshaun Watson in the Bay Area next season, realistically, I don't see it happening. I know he probably wouldn't mind. He'd probably be all for playing under Kyle Shanahan. But
I know when we talked about this when it first happened, that like when it first came out that Deshaun Watson was done, I think I put it at 1% that the Texans actually traded him. I think that number's higher, but I don't think that the 49ers are the top team to be in on it. I would guess they're around 4. That Miami, the New York Jets, and the Indianapolis Colts all have more value to give up to get Deshaun Watson than what the 49ers can give. Again, as conservative as the regime is, I just don't see them giving up what would be needed to get Deshaun Watson, especially when you're sitting at 12. There's no guarantee that, you're not going to get one of these. I know we all hype up these quarterbacks and that they're all these quarterbacks can go top 5. I just don't believe that. Yeah. I don't believe that. I think that it's likely that 2 of them go top 5, but I think that there could be a slide for others. This could be a really odd year with, no real combine to go off of. You're just going to have pro days and you're going to be able to do Zoom interviews, but it's not going to be the same. And so the questions are going to come in, is Zach Wilson's shoulder going to hold up? What about the issues with, Justin Fields' inconsistency with his decision-making and the fact that he holds the ball for too long? People are going to look at this tape. Trey Lance, he didn't play in 2020. He played 1 game. What are we looking at here? outside of Trevor Lawrence in terms of the quarterbacks, every single other one has at least one major question that is going to be answered differently by each regime, by each staff, by each scouting department on each team, and that could drastically affect how they, how they fall. And with Saleh going to the Jets, again, this is one of those things where we've talked about Shanahan kind of likes Sam Darnold. Maybe the Jets like him. So now at 2, maybe the Jets don't take him. Miami's not necessarily locked to take a quarterback either. Maybe they decide to let it rock with Tua. So now you're talking about a situation where, which we talked about with the regime being conservative. Do you tie your wagon to one of these quarterbacks in a year where you don't have a combine, in a year where the only access you have to them is at a pro day, which is limited, and Zoom interviews? Do you feel comfortable taking one of these quarterbacks with question marks in a top 5 position? The answer to me is that one or more of these guys could fall. And if one of those guys gets to 12, the 49ers can take him, stash him behind Jimmy for a year, and now all of a sudden we have an Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes situation where the rookie gets a year in Shanahan's system without having to play, and then you can move on from Jimmy Garoppolo and put the guy in year 2, and he can hit the ground running because he has knowledge of the playbook. He knows what's going to be called. So, to say that automatically the 49ers need to give up all this for Deshaun Watson, that's not necessarily true, depending on how the draft can fall. I think that if we get past the draft and the 49ers have made 0 moves on the quarterback position, that's when we can start saying, like, hey, is this regime a little bit too conservative with the position that we know should be upgraded going forward?
Yeah, that would be really unfortunate to see if they just did absolutely nothing, knowing what they have going forward. And I think what's funny, too, is that, just like you said, you put it at about 1%. I always thought it was a pipe dream that the Niners land Watson or even Stafford. And I think a lot of people got this idea that it's going to happen. It already happened. It's just a matter of being announced. And then now that it hasn't happened, they almost feel like something's been taken away from them. And they're like, oh, come on. Like, really, we're going to stick with Jimmy? It's like that was kind of the whole plan, going into week 17 and onward. And I just don't think that it would be as bad. And I know we're going to touch on that later in the week, but I just feel like the 49ers, the rumors that are not the rumors, the reports that are coming out, even from, I think Michael Silver, Rappaport, I don't remember who else was tweeting it, but they were saying, look, they're completely comfortable bringing Jimmy back. It's almost like a luxury move, but we don't need to upgrade at the position.
And the crazy thing is people don't, and I'm guilty of this too, because I look at it and I'm like, well, I'm not happy with Jimmy. How could the coaches be? But by all accounts, it seems like the coaches really do feel like, hey, unless there's an obvious path of improvement, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect the fact that they're willing to stand their ground and not overpay for a position that they think that they can win with. And that they, again, 2019, the 49ers are a year removed from being in the Super Bowl. A year ago, the 49ers were going to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So for them to be like, no, we're good. We can make this happen. I think that the fact that people don't believe them is part of the problem. We build up these expectations, and when it doesn't come to fruition, it's the sky is falling and it's the end of the world and we all get down and we all get frustrated. And, there needs to be some perspective on that not everything that we hear, even if somebody, it's the same thing that happened a couple years ago when Odell Beckham was on the block and the Giants were talking about trading him and everybody was like, let's go get Odell. Let's go get Odell. Five first rounds and like $85 bajillion. Just go get him. That's not how team building works. And I think that it's easy for us Twitter GMs to sit and sit in our chair and criticize the regime as it is. But outside of injuries, the one healthy year this team has had, they went to the Super Bowl. So, injuries have kind of tamped a bit of the expectations of the team and of how we're satisfied with how the team is being built. That's not to say that they're doing it wrong. It's just hard to see because the results haven't been there. So going forward, I mean, this year is going to be a telling year, and we're going to see we're going into year what, 5?
5.
4?
I think 5.
5. Year 5 of the Shanahan regime. And this is going to be a big year. So depending on how it turns out, that will inform us on their future. But the fact that we didn't get these quarterbacks and that we're probably not going to get Deshaun Watson doesn't necessarily mean that the regime isn't trying or they're not doing their best. I think that we just, there's a time to temper expectations.
Yeah, I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. If you like what you see, you think we're doing a good job covering it, do us a solid, hit that subscribe button below. Once we get to 2,000 subscribers, we're giving away another 49ers jersey. Could be you. So make sure you subscribe. Like this video as well. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Drop a comment below. Do you think the 49ers will end up paying the price for Deshaun Watson? Matt, it seems like that's kind of the worst thing you could tell a 49ers fan, at least on Twitter, in the last couple of weeks. Is it really that bad?
It's not ideal. I think we all recognize that Jimmy is not going to be the 10-year answer. He's not going to be the franchise guy that we're taking forward. And it's especially disappointing after all the hope that we had for him in 2017. Those last 5 games that he had kind of set us on a path where we're like, oh, man, Jimmy could be it. This could be the situation we've all been looking for. And it turned out not to be it. And, that happens. It's okay. With Stafford being floated out there, with Watson being floated out there, that also heightens expectations. The fan base gets a taste of the stuff that they can't have. But, with the amount you'd have to give up, is that the best for the team? Maybe, maybe not. If you run it back with Jimmy G, it's not the end of the world. Yes, it's the worst quarterback situation in the NFL, or in the NFC West, I should say, right now. But listen, you can get to the playoffs with Jimmy G. You can get to a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. We've seen it. It's not ideal. You need him to stay healthy. My biggest knock on Jimmy Garoppolo has been his health. The 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo are a perennial playoff team. That's, that happens. That's what it is. Without Jimmy G, the 49ers are what we saw this year. They're a 5-6 win team that it's not going anywhere. So it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. That's really all I can say on it in terms of what the expectations should be. We'd like to see something better. If we don't get it, we're just going to have to hold it. If we do get something better, fantastic. But we also have to remember, we're not even to the Super Bowl yet. The Super Bowl's on Sunday. We have time. There's time still. That we're not necessarily running it back with Jimmy G, but it wouldn't be the end of the world even if that were the case.
Yeah, I'm not completely opposed to it. I think that a lot of fans, myself included, going into this year, I was really excited for Jimmy. And, we kind of, if you look back at our live streams and the post-game shows, you can see our progression from very strong Jimmy defender. I don't want to say defender, but supporter. We felt like a lot of context would be missing when people would bash him. And then we kind of progressed slowly but surely into not being as sold on Jimmy. And by week 17, we were both saying, okay, Jimmy's got to go. Even though he wasn't playing much, but the fact that he wasn't playing much hurt the team tremendously. You can have success if your starting quarterback isn't even on the sidelines, So I feel like the 49ers, if he stays healthy, they can still be a pretty dangerous team. I'm not completely opposed to it, like I said. And I think Jimmy, if he comes back, if he stays healthy, the 49ers can have a level of success. I tweeted this out the night that the Stafford news broke. The issue with him is that he's never there. If he is there, I do still think they can have some level of success with him. That level is where the 49ers have to determine, is that where they want to stay as a franchise? Are they okay with having some level of success with a guy, or risking it to have more success with another guy, which could also turn into no success? So it puts them in a really middle of the road situation, which sucks because they're kind of in QB purgatory.
Yeah.
But they got to make a choice here. Are they willing to stay and, put their eggs in Jimmy's basket, or do they want to try and be risky and make a move and get somebody else who might be a little flashier, but also a little riskier?
Yeah, I think they're still at a point with Jimmy where they think some of this stuff is just bad luck. Yeah. The ACL and then 2 high ankle sprains. What are the odds? I think they're still at that point. I think this upcoming year, they feel comfortable rocking with Jimmy G if it's going to be too expensive to move on.
Right.
But if Jimmy G goes through another year that's riddled with injuries like this past year, I think that they're going to be willing to kind of move on from him. And that's going to be, that's going to be a real thing going forward. I don't think that Shanahan can afford too many seasons like this past one. I think that he's, getting to the point where it's like, okay, you're a genius, but we're not getting wins. And I know that health has been an issue, but you're kind of running out of that excuse. So it's going to be interesting to see going forward how they deal with that. I think that it's very, very likely that Shanahan's coming up on his last little bit as head coach if he doesn't kind of clean this up.
Yeah, you can only get by on that excuse for so long, regardless of how, smart you are and how, amazing your offense is. If you don't have success in any, job field, you're not going to be kept around long because somebody else can have success and they'll find that guy. They'll at least try to. And I love Shanahan, but he's stubborn. He gets in his own way. He's kind of his own worst enemy at times. And I think it's evident with Jimmy under center that that's exactly what happened. They could have not had Jimmy. They could have had somebody else. They could have even had Deshaun Watson. And they didn't. And now they have Jimmy. So it is what it is. But with all that being said, there is still a scenario here which Jimmy returns this season and the 49ers make the playoffs, maybe have a playoff run. It's not out of the realm of possibility, guys. We were all going into this year thinking repeat. What was the moniker going into this offseason?
Revenge tour.
Run it back. Yeah, revenge tour. Run it back. Because people had confidence in Jimmy. Regardless of what happened last season, they still had that confidence. What did he play this year? 6 games, roughly? 7 games? I don't know how many.
He played I think he played like 3 full games, but he wasn't right for any of them. And I think that he was injured or got pulled in 3.
Okay, so roughly total, he appeared in 6 games. I don't think that should be enough to change somebody's opinion. 100%. I am of the belief that they should move off of him because he can't stay out there. He's said 100 times. He's missed more games than he's played with the 49ers. For the amount of money they're playing him, that's not acceptable. But I think from a talent perspective, if he is able to stay out there, it's not a bad thing keeping him.
Yeah, I mean, he's good enough, right? Yeah. You're going to get to the playoffs. And I've always maintained that. Like, my thing is, I want to be in – listen. You can make the Super Bowl like the Rams did, right? And then miss the playoffs the next year. Or, I mean, how long had it been since they'd been to the Super Bowl before that point, right? You could be these franchises that make the Super Bowl once every 20 years or whatever and not make it any other year. Or you can be a franchise like Pittsburgh or New England where you're in the playoffs every single year. And for me as a 49ers fan, it's more fun for me to think that the team is in it every year, right? Like, yeah, okay, they could lose in the divisional round or they could lose a wild card game or whatever. But the entire season was the 16 games, and now probably going into 2021, 17 games, was worth it because they were in the mix, right? The goal is to get to the dance, and then anything can happen once you're in the playoffs. You know, if you go 5-11, you know by like week 10 that like your team sucks, and you're just like, all right, well, whatever. You know, and it doesn't make football fun. When your team is in the playoffs every year, you never know what can happen in the playoffs. And yeah, it sucks when you guys lose in the divisional round, but you got there. And that's the thing. The 16, 17 games before it was worth it because you got there. And now you look at the playoffs as something entirely different. It doesn't make your team bad or whatever. I would rather be a perpetual contender and in the playoffs all the time than make a Super Bowl once every 30 years and not make the playoffs in 25 of the other years. It just doesn't make sense to me. And for what again, we were talking about letting it rock with Jimmy G. For what the Rams paid for Matt Stafford, they've mortgaged their future. They don't have a pick until 2024 in the first round. That's crazy to me. So, yeah,
it's extremely.
Is that kind of a disappointment? Sure, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
No, and it keeps going back to there's truth in the reports that the 49ers are comfortable going back to Jimmy G. It's not the worst thing in the world. That is their plan B, sure, but it's, it's kind of like plan A and plan 1A. It's like it could happen. It also could go this way. Hey, we're fine with either way. It's like when my girl comes up to me, you want burgers or chicken parm for dinner? It's like, yo, they're both good. Whatever you want, I'm cool with. One might be a little better than the other, but sure. It's not a bad consolation prize for the 49ers if they happen to be stuck with Jimmy G for another year, and then maybe they want to address the quarterback position next year, whatever it may be, however it shapes out. I think they're in an all right spot. It could be a lot worse. It could be a hell of a lot worse. Matt, how does it affect them? What do they do?
Yeah, so Stafford was going to be the one piece that you could potentially get for a reasonable enough price that would have nudged them off of Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think that Watson is attainable at this point. We've talked about this earlier in the week, and I think that still holds true. I think the price tag is too expensive for the regime. They've shown that they're a little bit conservative at the quarterback position. So I think that Watson's kind of out. There's a couple of avenues that they can pursue. Because of COVID and because of the lack of an NFL combine, I'm pretty convinced that one of these quarterbacks is going to slip and get to 12. Even if not 12, like 10. But at that point, if the 49ers want to move up, it's going to be way less prohibitive than going to number 2 or 3 would be otherwise. So they're going to be in play for one of these rookie quarterbacks. They have to decide if they're going to let it rock with Jimmy Garoppolo, or depending on who the quarterback is, if they're going to insert a quarterback and think that, they're going to go quarterback there and just let it rock with the rookie. The other direction they can go is corner, which is going to be a huge need. And I do think that there's a chance that a corner like Patrick Surtain would fall to them. If not, I've heard J.C. Horn thrown out there, but I think he's kind of grabby. I think he's a little penalty prone, and we're going to be looking at another Ahkello Witherspoon situation where, it's cool. Okay, you do some good things, but, there are a lot of penalties on you, dude, like that we can't afford. But Patrick Surtain or somebody like that. The third move that they can make is trade back from 12 to the late first round, pick up some mid-rounders, and start addressing the interior offensive line with somebody like Creed Humphrey or, maybe a Rashawn Slater at the tackle position if Trent Williams leaves. There are moves they can make. I don't think at this point they're going to trade up to a number 2 for a Zach Wilson. I know that we had talked about that before, about trading and going and getting their guy. I think the Matt Stafford move kind of tips their hand a little bit in that they're okay with Jimmy Garoppolo if the only other alternative is overpaying for a better player. You know what I mean? So I think that they could potentially go Trey Lance or Justin Fields if they fall. I think those are the two that are most likely to fall. Trey Lance because he didn't play at all this year. They played one game and their season got canceled. Or Justin Fields, who really had a tough season. I know he had that great semifinal game against Clemson where they beat Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers. But then he was really that Alabama game was a shellacking. It wasn't close. And it drove home the thing that, the one knock on Justin Fields is that he holds the ball for a really long time trying to make a play. And that works in college because the best players are just so far and above away better than other players. But in the NFL, that won't cut it. So there are some questions there, regardless of what people will tell you. It's really hard for regimes to pin their hopes and dreams and their jobs really to a guy at quarterback. So there is potential for guys to fall. So the 49ers could go that way. I really do think they're going to go corner in the first round or trade back for line. But that's just me.
Yeah, I could see it. It's going to be interesting to see which of these quarterbacks fall. I agree with you. I think one at least does. This hype around Zach Wilson is building up. I don't think he'll be the one to fall. I think that teams, I don't know, maybe the fans are completely separate from the teams, but it seems like a lot of the hype is coming out of these, draft reporters and these, big name guys as well. So we'll see how it shapes out. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, I feel like those are going to be the top 2 quarterbacks no matter what taken. I do think, though, that the 49ers, they're actually in a pretty good position because they don't actually need to reach on a quarterback as much as they would have, a couple of years ago. Maybe they should have a couple of years ago, but they didn't. They can, bolster the roster, stick with Jimmy if they feel comfortable, take an offensive lineman, take a corner. I know there's a lot of talk about taking Kyle Pitts. I don't want that. I don't want to see that.
That would be a mistake. Please. I think tight end more than anything else is such a luxury position that you have. Just listen, I'm not going to indulge Chiefs fans. It's really easy when Patrick Mahomes was throwing him the goddamn ball, but even if you think that Travis Kelce is the best tight end in football, George Kittle is right there at number 2. So to go out there and draft Pitts at 12 is it's a wasted pick. There are limits to BPA, and I know a lot of people are on board with like, you take the best player available. There are limits to that. Tight end is one of those limits. Like, if you have George Kittle, you do not need to draft a tight end. When you have holes in the secondary, when you have holes on the offensive line, we have no idea whether the 49ers are going to be able to re-sign Trent Williams or not. Why would you go and draft a tight end? That's something that, like, Jacksonville does. That's something that a trash team, like the Jets. That's something the Jets would do. Oh, we have all these holes. You know what we should do? Draft a tight end. That makes sense. We don't have a line. That's fine. We don't have a running back. That's fine. We don't even really have a quarterback. That's fine. But tight end, that's the way to go. No, that's not what you do. That's not good team building. Kyle Pitts at 12. If the 49ers draft Kyle Pitts at 12, that would be a huge mistake.
Yeah, or drafting another edge rusher, which I keep seeing.
I will stop being a fan. We all know that. I'll stop being a fan if they draft an edge rusher at 12.
Look, the Draft Network, I have tremendous amount of respect for them. Jordan Reed, tremendous amount of respect for them. But I saw them put out a mock draft the other day that had them taking an edge rusher at 12. I forget
the dude from Miami, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Hell no.
Come on, they are not taking another edge rusher. They should not take another edge rusher.
Not only would that be bad because that would be the 49ers, fifth or sixth year in a row they've taken an edge rusher, but at that position, that's a reach for that guy.
It's just bad all around. It's bad all around. It's not a huge position of need. They have much, bigger positions of need than edge rusher. If they wanted, they can bring back Kerry Hyder. They could trade for J.J. Watt. They have Nick Bosa coming back. There are other options than wasting a first-round pick on a position of strength.
Did you see the social post from Kerry Hyder? He was like, "I'm waiting." Yeah, waiting patiently. Like,
hopefully that's not about that, but I have a feeling it is.
Yeah, I know. But okay, so I'm just hoping that it's Kerry Hyder not understanding how the league works and that they can't just offer him contracts before the league year starts. That's what I'm hoping. But they had a deadline at the end of the season, and now it's like, well, we can't do anything until the league year starts, dude. Like, we want to, but I'm hoping that's what it is. But yeah, I've always said that Kerry Hyder could have priced himself out. I think the same thing about Verrett. So again, but that just goes to the point. You don't want to overpay for quarterback. You don't want to overdraft another edge rusher. You don't want to do this stuff because you have so many other holes to fill. You have so many other areas of need that BPA does have its limits. If BPA, okay, cool. Maybe the next, third guy down from that on the BPA is a position of need. Of course, you're going to draft that guy. So, yeah, Kyle Pitts at 12. That's terrible thinking. Miami edge rusher at 12. I can't even remember his name. That's how not good he is. So, no disrespect to that guy. Just that's not what I'm looking at for this team, and that's not what this team should be looking at. All due respect.
I would much rather them feel comfortable taking a project like a Trey Lance than a sure thing pass rusher at 12. Because I don't feel like they need that. I feel like, they're fine on the defensive line as is. They had a solid defensive line last season with the majority, out. A bunch of plug-and-play pieces. Nick Bosa out. Solomon Thomas out. I would much rather them take a Trey Lance and try and work that in for a year, sit him out, have him learn the system, because you at least have a big piece potentially moving forward that you do know you need that at his position. So I'd much rather see him do that. Maybe
and let's not forget that there's guys like there's a J.J. Watt on the market that you could have for like a second or a third round pick that you could bring in as another edge rusher. And let's not forget that they're getting Nick Bosa back. Nick Bosa is going to be back. He's going to wreak havoc like he had before. Even if D Ford doesn't come back, there's a potential for an injury settlement there. There are things that you can do that you don't have to spend the 12th pick in the draft on another edge rusher on a position where you do have some strengths. There, you do have rotational guys. They've proven Kerry Hyder, Coach K on this defensive line, who, by the way, Coach K is staying. He hasn't gone anywhere. So you know that you're going to have continuity there. You know you're going to have a coach who knows what he's doing, who put the people in position to succeed. For better or worse, the team's probably going to resign Solomon Thomas as a rotational piece. So you're talking about at least Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Solomon Thomas. Then you got potential guys like DJ Jones and Ronald Blair coming back as rotational guys. You throw in a JJ Watt for a future second or third round pick, and you got a good defensive line. You don't need to put 12 in there. Now, when you think about Jaquaski Tart, free agent, K'Wan Williams, free agent, Emmanuel Mosley, restricted free agent, Kella Witherspoon, free agent, Jason Verrett, free agent, Richard Sherman, free agent. I don't know. It kind of seems like if Patrick Surtain can fall to 12, that seems like a good move to me. Just me, though.
I agree with that. That's a huge position of need. They should have addressed it last year. They didn't. They have a chance to now. I would be more than happy with Surtain at 12 if he fell, because it's a sure thing. It bolsters the secondary, helps out the pass rush. It helps all around. So I'd be totally for it. I think that's going to do it for us today. Go ahead, Matt. You got something to add?
No, I was going to say, even if it's not Surtain, again, J.C. Horn is a guy. Maybe you trade back a little further and get an Asante Samuel Jr. There are guys to be had here at corner, and that's an important position. Interior O-line is another one. So, again, to say edge rusher or whatever. Now, if a Trey Lance falls, of course, if you feel like that's your guy, go get him. But, this overpay and, these people want 49ers to automatically upgrade the quarterback. There are a lot more beneficial things to the team they can do in the draft than that. So we'll see what happens. We're going to do a mock draft here, I think, before too long. But, we'll definitely kind of go off of that. So we'll see.
Yep. I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. If you like what you see, do us a solid. Hit the subscribe button below. Like this video. Drop a comment. It feeds the algorithm more than you know. What do you think the 49ers will do in the draft? Are they going to trade up for a quarterback, stand pat, draft Kyle Pitts and piss Matt off? What do you think they'll do?
Yeah, listen, if they piss me off, I'll still be around. So make sure you click the bell so you never miss a video, especially when I'm going to go on one of my rants. They kind of become a trademark. I don't mean to do them the way that I do, but it just kind of comes out. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss a video. Please click the bell for notifications. It really helps us out. And as always, we love you. And until next time, go Niners.